And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome to the show today, live from Scotland, Doctor turned Hollywood writer Simon Stephenson, here to give us the inside scoop on the book everyone's talking about, Sometimes People Die. Simon, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Wow. So first of all, thank you for having me. Really excited to be here, and yeah, what a welcome. I should probably let you do it. You're probably better than me at this. So the book, though, yeah, Sometimes People Die is my new book. It is I guess a medical thriller, we could say. It is the story of a young doctor who has plenty of problems of his own, and he gets a job in a struggling hospital in London, and he begins to think that too many people are dying in the hospital, and that's often harder to tell than you might think, because people do die in hospitals. That's one of the things they're there for. And they're also a place where we all like to keep secrets. Everything's supposed to be a secret in a hospital. So those two things sort of combine to make it the perfect place for a kind of murder thriller. And then, but the other thing that happens in the book is it's a so that's the whodunit part, but there's also this whydunit part, because healthcare killing is such a kind of transgressive and baffling crime. Of course, it's the opposite of the reason why people are supposed to be there. So part of the book is the notion of, why do people do this? And so to kind of get to the bottom of that, there's a kind of true crime element where the book is interspersed with all these vignettes of actual true medical killers, going back to ancient Greece was the first one, right through to some of the more modern ones that people are probably familiar with, and that sort of ties in with their narrative, and it's supposed to put some question marks in people's heads, and maybe help steer them towards the culprit or not the culprit. And so yeah, that's my pitch for the book.
Well, it is a pitch that hooked us all, and we're so excited to chat about everything. I'm really intrigued by your description of it's not just a whodunit, which of course we all love, but also a whydunit. And I know as a reader, I seek understanding, and I often can't rest until I get it. So I'm excited to dive into every delicious detail. But first, I just want to welcome everyone. So we're broadcasting live to 6 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. No matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. And it is Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder. We're going to make it a little less painful for you. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Dr. Stephenson anything about his time as a doctor, as a hospitalist, as a Hollywood writer, how glamorous. A movie just came out that he worked on last year, and about all of the themes that he just talked about. The idea that people who have pledged their lives to heal others instead are hurting and taking those very lives that they're supposed to be preserving and actually ending them. Let's get into everything. Sarah White, welcome to the conversation. Hello to your cute little puppy. She said this is on her TBR, her to be read list. Yes, Sarah, let us know what you think about it when you get it. Welcome to the conversation, Lecha. She says, hello, Sarah and author Simon Stephenson. Lecha, always a pleasure to see your name pop up. Thank you so much. Canadian Courtney has entered the chat. Hey, Canadian Courtney. She said, this is absolutely one of the best medical thrillers I've ever read. So Courtney is a bookstagrammer and book reviewer. She is Caffeine Read Repeat on Instagram. Let me pop that up. So Courtney, high praise from you, ma'am. Tell us what made this one of the best medical thrillers that you have ever read. Was it that doctor aspect? Give us the deets, girl. Give us the deets. Sharon, welcome from Minnesota. Always a pleasure to see your name pop up, ma'am. Thanks for joining in. Lecha saying your book sounds like it is a must read. Lecha, yes, absolutely. Let's get into some of the praise. Let's kick off right there. So first up, we have Kathy Reichs, who calls this book witty, noting the quirky protagonist and the anecdotal descriptions of real life medical villains combined to make Sometimes People Die a delightful read. She says she absolutely loved it. Kathy, of course, is an amazing author in her own right. So, Simon, let's get into that first off. So, let's start with your quirky protagonist. So, fresh off recovering from an opioid addiction himself, where he was fired for
Mhm.
stealing meds. Were you? Why did you choose this particular path? Did you want to talk about the opioid crisis? Did you want to give us the skinny?
Sure, absolutely. So I think part of what I wanted to write about was I think it's the same in the US, but certainly here in Britain, we tend to do this thing where we really idolize healthcare staff and we put them on this pedestal and we did it a lot in the pandemic, and of course that's the right thing to do in some ways because they're absolute heroes, and I wasn't tough enough to keep doing that job, so my hat's off to all of them. But I think sometimes that this sort of this thing of putting them on the pedestal is actually a double-edged sword, because I think I've certainly had colleagues who have kind of maybe started to believe that and feel like they have to be superhuman and they have to give everything all the time, and they're not allowed to a sick day, and so I think partly what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of humanize things a bit and show that yes, these people are heroic, absolutely, but they're also real people. They're also humans who have their own, often have their own problems. The idea of the opioid addiction, I mean, certainly it is something that happens. It happens in society, and medicine's no different from that. I think as with all opioids, it's thankfully increasingly hard for people to do that. But certainly when I was practicing, there was a few colleagues that found themselves in trouble by going down that road. And I think again, like it's not a moral judgment at all on this character. Like I think what I'm trying to show is that if you put people in this extraordinary situation of stress and give them access to this thing, well, of course some of them are going to end up using that to kind of relieve the stress. So that's one part of it, and then of course the other part of it is that the book's a murder thriller, and these are powerful drugs, and of course they're often implicated in murders, and then healthcare murders. Opioids are classically one of the things that might be used. So it's kind of all tied in together. They all seem to fit.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because you're so right. In the UK and certainly in the US, doctors are idolized, with this, power to heal, to make well, to save lives. These are powerful tools to have at one's disposal, but it is more than that. It's almost like it's so glamorous to be a doctor, and it's so revered. So that is I never actually really thought about that until you said that. So thank you for bringing that up, and addressing that in here in your book. Courtney says, please tell me you haven't come across the plot in your book in real life. Simon, have you?
No, I definitely haven't. But what I can say is that I worked in when you're a junior doctor in the UK, you move around hospitals an awful lot, and I probably worked in, frankly, most hospitals in London. And so the hospital in which the book is set it's not a specific hospital, but there's definitely elements of different places where I worked that I brought into it. So the plot isn't real, but kind of the world it's set in is, I would say.
I love that. Courtney, great question. Thank you for that. Simon, thanks for the answer. Leisha wants to know, let's get into the writing part of it. Who has been your hardest character to write about and why? Great question, Leisha.
Wow. So I've never had this question before. And it's a really good one. I
She's
would
lobbing the
say,
tough ones at you, Simon.
yeah, right, absolutely. So in fact, I would say again, because it's it's all fiction, but of course these characters are in some ways based on amalgams of people I knew, and I knew so many people in medicine and all of that stuff. So they were all nothing's ever easy, but like I felt like I kind of knew who all the characters were, sort of, from fairly early on. I think maybe the bigger challenge with this book was actually writing the nonfiction book, the nonfiction parts, the true crime bit, because what I was trying to do with those things was, yes, explain some of the cases that have happened, but also look for motives in some of those. And that was actually harder to do, because you're trying to put yourself in the mind of what are often psychopaths and maniacs and lunatics to try and find why on earth would they do these terrible things, and try and find some rationale for their very warped thinking. So that was maybe the harder bit to write.
Ooh, that is a fascinating backstory. Thank you for that. For that, I'm here for the juicy backstory details. So thank you for that. It's so great. Oh, Courtney would like to know what made you want to become a doctor. Great question.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the context for this is that I think Courtney's maybe in Canada. She said so. Actually, this will be more familiar to her. But in Britain and in Canada, the idea is that, or the truth is that you go to medical school as your undergraduate degree often, and in America, obviously, medicine is a postgraduate degree. And so what that means is that in the UK, you decide to be a doctor so much younger than you would in the US. So, effectively, you're making that choice when you're choosing which subjects you're going to study in your later years of high school, which is when you're kind of 15 or 16 years old. And that's fine if you're a very precocious, smart person who knows what the world is and knows what the job of being a doctor is, and maybe your parents are doctors and you know what they do. If you're me and the first series of ER starts just at absolutely the wrong moment, just the first series of ER just starts there on television when you're 15 or 16, and you say, "Oh, I want to do that. That's what I want to do," then you can find yourself at 18 studying medicine, thinking, "Wow, is this? I'm not quite sure this is what I thought it would be," but I loved it nonetheless. But I think there's a whole generation of us that George Clooney is the person to blame for us becoming doctors.
Yeah, I think we should blame George. He seems like a good scapegoat. Let's stick with that. And speaking of doctors, Dr. Judy Melanik, and her writing partner and partner in real life, TJ Mitchell, were on the show. So she is a real life medical examiner, and she came on when her book came out. Let's pop over to her review. I'm going to pop it up right here. Saying Simon gives us a medical thriller that echoes Robin Cook by way of Edgar Allan Poe. Wow, high praise. With a lying, cowardly, mediocre doctor as our guide. I'm putting it back down because it was covering our faces. As our guide to St. Luke's Hospital, where the staff have lives in their hands and death under their thumbs. As the mystery spirals and the bodies pile, his cynical charm and black humor will draw you in. You'll trust him to get you through it, but should you? High praise there from Dr. Judy Melanik. Let's talk about that. Let's get into it a little bit more. So first of all, cynical charm and black humor. Simon, as both a thriller writer, a former doctor, and a Hollywood writer, what do you think the secret is to being funny on the page? Because it's hard to be funny, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? That like you never want to consider yourself funny, because that's usually the hallmark of someone who isn't funny. You sort of find yourself telling a joke at a party and no one laughs, and you say, "No, I'm funny. I'm funny." It's harder. I think. I mean, I think certainly medicine, I think, does lend itself to this like sort of cynical black humor, and I think that a lot of what I'm doing in the book there really isn't isn't anything that doesn't happen every day in the handover room and on the ward round. I think it does naturally sort of foster this kind of slightly irreverent, sometimes slightly grim sort of gallows humor, and interestingly, that happens a lot more in kind of different specialties. So I work mainly in adult internal medicine, and certainly that is just everyone's just cracking jokes all the time. And then I went to work in pediatrics for a while, and of course it's a bit more serious there, and you mustn't make jokes over there. I got in trouble for that once or twice.
I muted myself so in case my dog was going to
All
bark.
right.
So clearly, whatever you're doing on the page is working because your sense of humor is getting noted by Judy and others. So great to see that. And let's hop back over. Let's dive a little more actually into. Courtney says she loved the show ER. Yes, and she'd like to know what got you into writing the novel. And she said, please tell me that there will be more by you. Yes. So Simon, let's take this piece by piece. First, what got you into writing a novel?
So this is my third book, and actually they've all been slightly different. So the first book was a memoir. I lost my brother in the tsunami in 2004, and I wrote a memoir about that.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. The more recent book was a couple of years ago. I published a book that was a very different from this one. It was a sci-fi comedy about an android who wants to be a screenwriter, and now this one, of course, is a medical thriller. So they're all obviously very, very different, and I kind of, that I think that often surprises people a bit. But I actually, I read and I watch, in all different genres, and I love them all. And I think ultimately, to me, they're kind of all the, it's all writing really, when it comes down to it. So so absolutely there will be more, and the question is just what's next. My plan had always been to kind of keep moving through the genres and just try something different every time, and keep that exciting. But I've actually enjoyed this one so much, and this process so much, that I think this might be the territory for me to stick in. And certainly, like, whilst I do watch and listen to everything, crime probably is the one thing that I keep coming back to. So
well, I may be biased here on mystery and thriller ravens, Simon, but I'm voting for mysteries and thrillers. My first book was also a career memoir, and I segued over to mysteries, and I just think these are the best people, the best readers, and the wonderful community. So I'm voting for more medical thrillers, and I have a feeling Canadian Courtney is too. Yeah. We have a mystery user saying, I'm going to start this one this week. I'm so excited. Yay. We're so excited. Let us know what you think of it. And we have another question here from Alicia. She'd like to know, do your book characters talk to you? And if they do, have you ever had to change something in the story because of it? Yeah, get into it.
So great question. And this is funny because this is, like I suppose I always used to hear writers say things like this, like the character insisted that it was this, or like I let the character leave me, and I just, for years, I kind of didn't know what people were talking about, and I thought it was this kind of just like this affectation that people said in interviews to make it sound like divine inspiration. But actually, in the with these two books, this has been happening for the first time to me, and I think maybe it's a sign that you're on the right track, and you are really starting to live with your characters and spend time with them. I don't think, like, did they change something in this story? I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't think they did, but only because I kind of I felt like as I was writing, I was kind of being true to them, if that makes sense. That like I wasn't taking them off on a tangent where they wouldn't want to be anyway. If that, I was kind of following who they were. If that isn't something pretentious that people say in interviews.
Simon, thank you so much for saying that, because I felt the same way for years. People would always say, "Oh, my characters talk to me," and I was thinking, like, I ain't never heard anything. Like, I had this belief, like, I must not be very creative, or I must not be doing it right because I'm listening, but nobody is talking to DiVello. So, and I also was wondering if, as you as a doctor were thinking, "Oh, you're hearing voices, maybe we should take a look at that." There's actually a great medication for that. We can take care of that for you. But I did think it was affect, or that they were more creative than I was, and I couldn't, why wasn't I hearing these voices? But in this book, and I feel like I have started to hear them, and maybe it is because I've gotten to know them better, and have allowed that to develop. But Thank you for saying that, because I've also wondered about that. Leisha, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I think it's really important, because I think like, I know probably a lot of writers are watching this as well, and I think, really important to be honest and kind of, definitely it's very easy to kind of, sit up here and pretend that, oh, it's all magic and they just,
Yeah.
the characters appear and tell me, but no, it's just grind, isn't it? You just sit down and do the work.
Yeah, here I am in my my leather elbow paneled smoking jacket, pontificating on the great writing session that I had this morning. It's like, no, I'm over here struggling. Oh my gosh. Leisha saying thank you so much for answering her question. Leisha, thanks for asking the great questions. Y'all, I just want to remind you, this book is not even out yet. It comes out tomorrow. This is a special pre-launch event that Simon is coming on to share with us the inside scoop. The book is out tomorrow, so pre-order it now. I'm going to pop the link up on the screen. So grab your copy right here. And the good folks at Murder by the Book will send it out tomorrow. So here's the link, no matter where you're watching from, click, 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 order it up and get your mitts on this tasty book. Sometimes People Die, out tomorrow. Yes, thank you so much. Leisha saying she loves psychological thrillers. Yeah, it's so, and the addition of maybe not being able to trust the narrator, another tasty aspect. So Simon, let's talk about, as both a writer and also a reader, is there a favorite scene that you have in this book?
Yes, but can I talk about it without giving away the plot?
Yeah, no spoilers. Okay,
but let's find a.
Tell us how far through the book is it?
It's about halfway actually. It's about halfway.
Okay.
I probably mustn't say more than that. I'm afraid. I mean, there's definitely a lot of different scenes which I kind of sort of actually. Are meaningful to me in lots of ways. So some of them are kind of written from experience. For instance, there's a scene where the narrator has to certify somebody as having died, and it's one of these strange things that happens in medicine that no one ever really talks about. That you suddenly find yourself alone in a room with effectively a dead person, and you have this kind of strange sort of 5-minute communion with them, where there's a ritual that you have to do. You have to hold your stethoscope over their heart and lungs for a minute each and make sure that there's no sounds, and test some reflexes and make sure that there's no reflexes there, and it's just this very sort of strange kind of almost sacred part of the job that you kind of do amidst kind of running around the rest of the wards, doing all your day-to-day work, and so there's a few things like that I sort of are quite poignant to me, just because they make me think of situations I've been in, and the sort of like there's the people that I've done that for, and that just strange bond that you have with those people.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that a little more, Simon, because I think, here on the show, obviously, we're focused on mysteries and thrillers. That's what we like. That's what we like to read. And, they usually feature a murder or several. And I have always wondered if hospitalists and also detectives, what is the feeling of viewing a body? It used to be this person, a real life person with hopes and dreams and promises and histories and conversations they never got to have, or plans and whatever, and now they are just a body. Now that light has left. And what is the process? Is it, I wonder, do you find yourself getting to the jaded part where it's just like, okay, make the certification, test the reflexes, listen for a heartbeat. And I've seen 10,000 so far dead bodies, and I can't, you have to protect your heart, or your heart will break? Or is it always, this is a human? What is that like?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And funnily, like, I think almost, I mean, my experience was that when say we're talking about a situation where somebody unexpectedly has a cardiac arrest or something on the ward. You know, you all rush in. The alarm goes. You all rush them, and I think for those moments, it very much is kind of like being a mechanic. You know that this body needs oxygen to reach the brain, and oxygen to reach the lungs, and you all just have to work to achieve that, and there's a very set protocol that you follow. So I think in those moments it's you're really not thinking at all about who is this person and what's their story, but after when the resuscitation hasn't been successful and you're left alone with the person, that's kind of when the it suddenly gets very still and calm and quiet. And that's suddenly when you might notice, is there a photograph on the side of the bed, or have they had a lot of visitors? Are there lots of cards and flowers, or aren't there? And then you also have to write this, you have to write the death certificate. So for that, you have to kind of, take out the medical notes and kind of read back through them, and find out what's been happening, and find out what their diagnoses were. And often during that process you can kind of learn a bit more about them. And there's one thing that is sort of funny is the physical form, the death certificate form. One of the questions it always asks is occupation, and of course that's not really the first thing that you think of when you're in a hospital. You're not really that bothered about what someone's occupation was, but having to kind of find out that bit of information, that's often you go from this person being in front of you being someone who you don't know anything about, apart from that they had a heart attack and before that they had this thing, to oh, they were a teacher, or they were a dentist, or they worked in a store. It's quite humanizing, those details, I think.
Yes, humanizing, exactly. Leach sharing, both my daughter and my son-in-law are RNs, registered nurses, and I'm so very glad that they have each other to talk about and vent with each other, since they cannot tell anybody anything. Yes, Simon, you start off this interview by saying that one of the reasons you wanted to write this book is because the hospitals have to keep so many secrets, and doctors have to keep so many secrets. So Leach clearly resonating with that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I think she's absolutely right. It's great that they have each other. I think it's lots of times nurses, doctors. People that work in healthcare often end up together. I think partly for that reason. I sort of mine was more my romantic partners. I don't think were ever from the hospital, but I've got some sort of lifelong friends, and for instance, one of my closest friends now is the person that was my night shift partner. So for years, one week in 6, we would do these night shifts together, and you get to know this person like nobody else, and you also you have these things to share that other people just as you say, you're not allowed to talk to people about them mostly, and then
Right.
but also, even if you did try to explain, it wouldn't necessarily make a lot of sense to people. So there's something about having those people that you've been through those things with. It's really special. So that's great they have each other.
Exactly. We have just 2 minutes left, so any last minute questions, get them going in the comments. And I just want to hop over to Ken Bruin, who with his review, I'm going to pop it up right there, him saying that, quote, sometimes people die, blew me away and cost me a night's sleep. High praise there. Both a revelatory glimpse into the rigors and strains of medicine and a thrilling piece of entertainment. This astounding novel announces the arrival of a new Michael Crichton for the zeitgeist. High praise there. Simon, congratulations.
Thank you. Amazing. I mean, he's an incredible writer, and just what a dream to have someone anyone say such nice things, and for it to be him is it's incredible. So I'm delighted with that.
Yeah. And he is not the only one. I also want to get to this one from Steve Berry, the New York Times bestselling author of The Omega Factor, also a fan, calling this, quote, a highly satisfying tale that is at once relevant, moving, and eye-opening. Congratulations on that. And the industry reviewers are also raving. Publishers Weekly noting how you were able to shift the novel's tone from dread to suspense as the narrator turns amateur sleuth. Was that hard for you to shift that tone, Simon?
I mean, again, I'm not necessarily sure that was a conscious, or at least it wasn't necessarily my primary intention. You know, I suppose with hindsight, yes, you know, you're setting up a story, you want it to be ominous, and yes, you want the pace and the suspense to increase as you go, and it's probably, you know, I was probably working to those ends, but I guess I didn't necessarily phrase it in those terms in my head of, you know, I need to change from dread to suspense, you know.
It just came naturally, like hearing those voices. Y'all, the book is out tomorrow, so be sure to pre-order your copy from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. So pre-order here. I'm going to pop it up one more time. Everybody grab your copy so that you too can immerse yourself in this world, which Laura Prescott, New York Times bestselling author of The Secrets We Kept, notes as dark and haunting, powerful and propulsive. Sometimes People Die is a smart, cinematic tour de force written by an exceptional talent. The novel is simply unputdownable. Congratulations on that amazing bit of praise as well. Well, Simon, thank you for joining us live from Scotland to give us the inside scoop on Sometimes People Die. Mystery and Thriller fam, thank you all for tuning in, for spending your Monday afternoon with us. Be sure to pre-order. Here again is that link one more time. Grab it. Reacher's saying she just loves pictures. Exactly. It's that unputdownable factor, right? The thing that keeps us up late reading is the best when you're like, I'm so tired, but I've got to read one more page or one more chapter. And then Dr. Stephenson hugs us in and we're 10 chapters later. We haven't gotten a wink of sleep, but it's so worth it. Everybody, thank you so much. I will see you tonight at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern with Deanna Rayborn and Kate Nunn live from Australia. We're working our way around the world from Scotland to the US to Australia today on Mystery Monday. Simon, please come back and chat with us next time for your next book. What a pleasure chatting with you today, and congratulations on Sometimes People Die.
Thank you so much for having me. Love being here, and thank you to everyone watching.